Hello and welcome to my channel. My name is Carmen. Thank you for being here. Thanks for coming back if you've been a subscriber, and welcome to any new people who might be happening by. So this video is going to be a really exciting one for me because it's very different from anything that I've done before. It's going to be kind of quasi-vlog style of a floss tube. So basically, recently I took a trip to the Netherlands with my mom for about a week, and while I was there, I visited 2 LNSs. I'd never been to an LNS before, so it was very exciting for me because I got to go to not 1 but 2, Soed Idee and the Handwerk Boetiek. And I also went to the very famous Stephen and Penelope yarn shop in Amsterdam. And at all 3 of these places, I took a whole bunch of video and pictures. And it's also kind of a vlog style of video because while I was there, I was knitting on a couple of pairs of socks and I kind of gave some updates. So I thought about maybe splitting this video into 2, but ultimately decided that it made the most sense to just kind of share all of the footage in chronological order. So that's what I've decided to do, and Carmen from today will be popping in here and there to kind of fill in the gaps, give a bit more context, show the things that I bought, and talk a little bit more in detail about my experience. So that's going to be the format of this video, but actually I think more than half of it is just like kind of vlog footage that I took while I was there. So we'll see how this video format works. I am already having fun editing all of the footage that I took. So hopefully you guys like it too, and you'll have to let me know if this is something that you enjoy, because I kind of like it and it kind of makes me want to travel to places more with this kind of a purpose. Anyways, so right off the bat, I do want to kind of warn you that the beginning like 25-ish minutes of this video are going to be very yarn and knitting heavy, and I am aware that not everybody who watches my channel is necessarily interested in knitting, so I am going to put a timestamp on screen of when most of the cross-stitch related stuff happens so you can skip ahead. I also will put chapters so you can jump around if you want. However, before the cross-stitchers forward a little bit in the video, I do just want to say that I highly recommend that you at least watch my visit to Stephen and Penelope, the yarn store in Amsterdam. It's such good eye candy. Even if you're not into knitting at all, it's just fun to watch. Even if you're not a knitter and you end up in Amsterdam and you just want to look at some pretty colors, I highly recommend stopping by that shop. If you like hand-dyed floss, you'll like hand-dyed yarn. Hand-dyed yarn is basically just hand-dyed floss jumbo on steroids. It's so fun. So I really hope you'll at least watch that, but if you want to jump ahead, I totally get it. So my first vlog kind of clips, I do feel like I need to kind of introduce them a little bit because I have, and I know I mentioned this in my last video, but I have taken upon the challenge of knitting all 52 pairs of socks in this book by LYS Publishing. I thought it was Len, but apparently it's LYS. Anyways, and I knit one of these pairs while I was there, and I was filming for that video series, and I decided to just also include it in this vlog. I guess it's kind of a teaser for that video series for whenever it comes out. So the first clip is kind of me talking about the pair of socks, so it's a little bit of a weird beginning to the vlog, but I just felt like with that little bit of context, it would make a bit more sense. So I'm going to hand things over to Carmen from a few weeks ago, and Carmen from today will be back with some explanations very, very soon. So I am finally on pattern number 5, which is the Unity sock. The designer is Nina Tanskanen, and the yarn I have decided to use is Sisu by Sandness Garn. Every time I say Sandness Garn, I want to say Sadness Yarn. Sandness Garn. And what's going to be really interesting about knitting this particular pair of socks is, though I will be starting them here, I am going on a trip to the Netherlands I'm leaving in 3 days. It'll be my first time traveling with knitting needles, and I'm like really hoping they don't take them away from me at security, but we'll see. I think sock knitting on the plane is gonna be kind of awesome. I'm actually really looking forward to it. I've knit on trains, and it just like the time flies by. Okay, with that said, I am gonna get started on this sock. Okay, so it is a couple days later, and I will be leaving for the airport in, I think, less than 2 hours. There's always like a million little things that I gotta do before a big trip, and you know, this update was one of them, so I'm ready to cross that off the list. Anyways, here is my progress on the Unity sock. I've just finished, this was a couple of days ago, but I finished the leg, and I really love how this is looking so far. It looks like not much right now, but it really comes alive when you stretch it. And you can see all of that lovely cabling, and it creates these little veins that kind of intertwine and overlap. I think it's great. And I'm loving this yarn too. It's not as like soft as some of the other ones that I've used, but it's not scratchy, and it really feels very like sturdy. However, I am hoping that the next time I do an update, I'm not, you know, having tears in my eyes because the TSA agent took my needles away at the airport. Hopefully this is not the last time that I see these needles. Oh, I'll be so bored on my flights. Anyways, according to the internet and some people that I asked, it should be fine. I even had one person recommend that I stab the needles into a ball of yarn because it makes it look less threatening. And I like that idea. I think I'm gonna do that. I scanned and printed the pages of the book that I need for this chart because I didn't really want to lug around the entire book. So I have that. I also took pictures of it on my phone, and I'm gonna finish up my packing and all the other little things that I have to do before I leave, and I'm gonna be ready to go and knit in the sky. Yay! So I'm about to leave the house, but I did just want to show where I'm at on Charlotte Ramsay. Before I leave, I had really hoped to get to the halfway point, and I almost made it. I just needed to do some back stitching around this letter H, and then there was one more horizontal border like similar to these ones. And I think I just needed like another hour and a half, but didn't quite make it. Almost, but not quite. Anyways, I think this was about 2 weeks of stitching, and I'll be very happy to come back to it when I'm back from the Netherlands. It'll kind of be my reward because once I'm past this little border, everything below that are the motifs. So I've been stitching nothing but alphabets and initials for weeks, and I'm happy for that part to be done. These eyelets, this section here, this alphabet as well as this border, took me 4 days just to stitch that. I did not expect that to take me as long, but I prevailed. I did it, and I'm curious to know how many eyelets it is. I know across here there are 99, just that one border. So if I were to guess, I'd say that there are more than 400 eyelets here. My guess would be, you know what, I'm gonna count them when I get back and I'm gonna put it on screen, but right now my guess is 426. We'll see how off I am. Anyways, that is the last bit of stitching I'm going to be doing for a little while because I'm only bringing knitting with me on this project just because I find stitching is a lot harder to transport and to work on the go. So I decided I was just going to work on socks, but I'm sure I will be very excited to get back to this in just over a week from now when I'm home. So with that, I'm going to go because it's time to get moving. So I'm at the airport. Excuse the bad angle. And great news, I made it through security with my knitting needles. They didn't even ask me any questions about it. So now I'm just getting started on the heel flap because we don't start boarding for an hour and a half. So I have time to kill. This is great. So I'm in the Netherlands and I'm at my friend's place and I'm so tired, but anyways, here's the progress that I've made on the sock. So I did all of this pretty much Mostly in the airports. Honestly, I didn't knit that much on plane because it was like nighttime and the lights were out and I didn't want my lights to be on and to disturb the people around me. But anyways, I did get some knitting done on the plane. I didn't do a great job picking up the stitches in the gusset on, oh wait, no, it's on this side. I remember exactly what was happening. There were a lot of distractions and somehow those little stitches there were harder to pick up. They were a lot tighter than on the other side of the heel flap for some reason. Anyways, I have like half a pattern repeat left in the cable pattern before the pattern tells me to do the toe, but I don't think the sock will be long enough. It's a little bit hard to gauge because it's a bigger needle size, so the toe will grow faster than what I'm used to. So anyways, I'm gonna kind of play it by ear. I'll try it on once I finish the pattern repeat and make a final call a little bit later. But yeah, I might actually finish this sock today, which means that I'm gonna finish this pair way before I go back to Canada. So cool, I guess. Anyways, here it is, and once again, my favorite thing to do with this is stretch it, because then you can see everything. Because like this, it kind of just looks like bumpy ribbing. But you pull it, and then all of a sudden, cables! Okay, so it's a few hours later. I have to be kind of quiet because my mom's in bed. But I finished it, and I'm showing it to you on my foot because you really can't see the pattern at all when it's just hanging out, not on my foot. So I ended up adding 9 rows to the foot. I just followed in pattern because it really wasn't long enough. And even with that, this sock is like a little bit too small. I'm really hoping that with blocking and maybe a little bit of wear, it'll stretch out. And if not, then either I give them away or I try to fix them or I deal with it. I don't really know yet, but I have high hopes. And yeah, so I've already started sock number 2 and I'm gonna work on it on a whole bunch of train rides tomorrow. So hoping to finish this in the Netherlands this week. This will be my Dutch sock. So I'm in Amsterdam. This is my 3rd day in the Netherlands, and today is the day that I'm gonna go to Stephen and Penelope to buy some yarn. And I'm working on my socks. I'm really hoping to finish this sock today because I would like to start a new sock while I'm here. That would be super cool, and it would be cool to use the yarn that I buy today. My mom wanted me to buy some neutral yarn for her. She wasn't able to come into Amsterdam today, so she's given me the responsibility of picking up her yarn. And she wanted me to get a neutral colored yarn. And I sent her some pictures I found online of the inside of that shop as well as of Stephen West. And I was like, are you sure you want a neutral yarn? So in the end, I'm gonna get an orange yarn for her, so hopefully I can find that there. If not, I'll just pick something else up for her, and if she doesn't like it, I'll keep it for myself, which sounds fine to me. So I am just sitting here at a little a little cafe in the Jordaan neighborhood of Amsterdam, a place called Winkel 43. I had an appeltaart and first mint day, which I'm still working on. And soon I will work up the courage to walk to the yarn store and hopefully be able to film a little bit in there. I don't want to film people because I don't know if everyone wants to be on camera. But hopefully it's like not too busy. Yesterday was a really busy day because it was a national holiday. So there was a lot of commotion going on. But hopefully Tuesday morning won't be too bad. Either way, I'm going to pick up some pretty yarn and I'm sure I'll have a great time. So I've got to pop in really quick here because on my way to Stephen and Penelope, I ended up very briefly visiting another yarn shop called the Afstap. And I was aware that this yarn store existed. I had watched many videos of knitters making vlogs of their trips to Amsterdam. So there's a couple of yarn stores there aside from Stephen and Penelope. So I was vaguely aware of this. But when I was looking at the map on my phone to figure out how to get to Stephen and Penelope, I realized that the Afstap was actually like right around the corner. So I thought, okay, why not just pop in there? And I took one little clip of the shop. I wasn't there for very long, but I thought I would mention that they actually have a little cross-stitch section in that store. And I kind of leafed through there, and there are a whole bunch of patterns that are very much like the Netherlands and Amsterdam related. So really good like souvenir projects. So if you're a cross-stitcher in Amsterdam and you want something to pick up to commemorate your trip, you should definitely stop by the Afstap. And they also had a lot of different yarns there. I think it was less so the hand-dyed yarns that I ended up finding at Stephen and Penelope and more like your standard brands. But yeah, it was a really cute little place and right around the corner from Stephen and Penelope. So I definitely think it's worth hitting up both of those shops. So the next clip you're gonna see is from my very brief visit to the Afstap, and all of the following clips will be from my time at Stephen and Penelope. Okay, so I'm checking in. I came back from Stephen and Penelope a couple of hours ago. I'm kind of kneeling on the ground right now on a park bench. Camera's on a park bench. It's hard to find a setup that works here. But anyways, yes, I went to Stephen and Penelope, and I actually passed right by it and didn't realize it was there. And then I realized that the spot where it's at, because I lived here for 5 years, the spot where it's at, like I passed by that place like hundreds of times when I lived here, and I just had no idea. I also wasn't, you know, knitting back then, so I wouldn't have cared. But anyways, there's people. Okay, so I ended up getting 3 skeins of yarn. I was only supposed to get 2, but I couldn't help myself. So for my mom, I got Punk Rock Unicorn in this super bright orange. My mom wanted an orange, a solid orange, to commemorate, you know, her Dutch trip. So it's Dutch, it's House of Orange, Oranje, whatever. So that's my mom's, and it's super soft, and the color is called Fuchsias? Fuchs? I don't really know how you pronounce that, but Fuchs. So that's what she got. And then for me, I kind of copied her a little bit with the orange, and I really wanted something that was from Amsterdam. So I got from Undercover Otter, this is called Hacko Lantern, and apparently all of the yarn names are based off of like horror films and stuff, so that was very cute. And I really want to knit some socks with these that I start here. So actually, if I just show you my sock, because I've been working on it, this is my second sock. I have 1 full pattern repeat left, and then the toe. So oops, the yarn's in the way there. So I'm well on my way to finishing this pair of socks, so that maybe I could even cast this on tonight. I think if I'm focused, I can finish this sock today, which would be great. Anyways, I'm gonna put that there because it's flopping all over the place. So I got that, and I already have a pattern in mind, and yes, it's a Stephen West pattern because I got the socks at his shop. I have to use his pattern, duh. Anyways, and then I holding this yarn. Okay, I also got a crochet hook, 2 millimeters, because I bent my other crochet hook. So this was kind of a impulse at the checkout counter, kind of by €2, whatever, who cares. The last skein of yarn that I got was this one, and this one I got it because it was just really pretty. And you know, I always have leftover yarn, and I feel like these two would look really good together because there's that orange that'll tie it together, and it's pretty and green and has a little bit of purple and some, anyways, whatever. It's also Undercover Otter, and it's called Yaucha. I have no idea what that reference is. I'm guessing another. It's getting windy, so I'm hoping that my audio isn't messed up. But I don't know what Yaucha reference is. Something to do with horror films, I guess. So that's the other yarn I got. This will also be for a pair of socks. I don't know which ones yet, but I'm thinking that they might pair well together, whatever is left over from this. And then, also sort of an impulse buy, I got these things. These are super cool. They're like the tiniest little circular needles you can imagine. And they are, hold on, I opened one a minute ago. I'll open it again. It's a cable needle, stitch holder, stitch marker, seam baster, drop stitch fixer. So they're kind of like, they're stiff, right? And I just feel like this would be such an easier cable needle for the next time that I need to cable. And also they're just super cute. So I got a set for me, and I also got a set for my mom because, you know, she's here too in spirit. So that's everything I got there. But the experience of being there was so nice. I did take a few videos. I was a little bit shy, and I didn't ask if I was allowed to. I just kind of just did it. And I was being really careful to not like get any other customers. There were a few other customers there. It wasn't like crazy packed, but there were people around, so I didn't want to yeah, so I just had to be careful, and I took a couple of clips. So I hope it's enough, but I also didn't ask if I was allowed. I'm sure it was fine because I've seen a lot of people on YouTube making videos about the shop, so I didn't ask, but maybe I should have. Anyways, that is basically my Stephen and Penelope experience. Everyone at the shop was super nice. At one point, I think it was the manager, caught me just like looking at yarn and smiling, and she pointed it out. Anyways, there are people around, so I'm gonna stop filming now. So fast forwarding a little bit now, but I figured I would include this clip here. On our very last day in the Netherlands, me and my mom ended up going back into Amsterdam. We split up, I met a friend, and she did some, touristy shopping stuff. And I really encouraged her to go to Stephen and Penelope. I wanted her to see that space. It's just so pretty in there. And, I had gotten her a skein of yarn, and my mom, being my mom, ended up also picking up a skein of yarn for me. So I only got this on the last day, so I didn't show myself showing it in my vlog clip. So I'm just gonna show it now. So this is a sock yarn from La Bien-Aimée, which is like a very coveted brand. So good job, Mom. Some nice taste you've got there. In the color dire wool. And it's a very neutral, so she kind of apologized when she gave it to me. She's like, I'm sorry, it's so boring. And it's like, this is not boring at all. Neutrals are great, and I definitely need some of these. So this is great. It's kind of a purpley gray. I really like this color. She has great taste. So good job, Mom, and thank you for this beautiful skein of yarn.
Okay, I'm gonna have to be really quiet and quick because my mom is trying to sleep. But just a quick update, I finished my socks and I'm really looking forward to getting home so that I can block them, because I think these are going to be very different socks once they're blocked. And I went ahead and balled up one of the skeins of yarn that I bought today, and I cast on. I couldn't help myself. I'm going to be doing the Basket Weaver socks by Stephen West, and I just got a little bit of a head start. It's not too complicated of a pattern. It's not too busy of a pattern, so I feel like this slightly variegated speckled yarn won't compete too much with the pattern. Anyways, that's my start. I don't think I'm gonna have a ton of time to knit tomorrow, but I am very glad that I got this started. Okay, I have to go to bed now because it's gonna be a very early morning. We're gonna do a lot of driving tomorrow.
Okay, so we have now arrived to the cross-stitch portion of this video. Well, there's still some sock updates coming up, but this is where most of the cross-stitching content comes into play. So the people who jumped ahead, hey, thanks for sticking with me. Anyways, so in the second half of my trip to the Netherlands, me and my mom had planned this little kind of tour of the top half of the Netherlands, because we wanted to go to Drenthe, which is the province that my family's from, and visit some of our relatives. And it just so happened that the path that we took, it worked out perfectly, because I also had these two cross-stitch shops that I really wanted to visit. And actually, when me and my mom had booked this trip back in October, I kind of mentioned to her, like, do you think we could like make this happen? And she seemed game. So luckily for me, I was able to visit two LNSs. And the first of these two that we visited is Soed Idee, which is in the very small town of Wassen. I think it might be in Overijssel. I will check which province it's in and I'll put the name of it on screen, but it escapes me right now. But yeah, me and my mom had rented a car and we drove out there, and we were kind of early, and I had been in communication with Simone, and she recommended that we get lunch at this windmill. So I took a couple of pictures there, a little bit of video. If you're in the area, if you end up visiting Soed Idee, definitely visit that windmill. I think they said there's something like 1,200 working windmills in the Netherlands, like the old ones, not the electricity ones. But yeah, I mean, they're kind of scattered around the country. I used to live right near one of those windmills when I lived in Amsterdam, and it is now a brewery. Anyways, so just a little recommendation: if you ever end up visiting Soed Idee, just grab lunch at the windmill. They have a restaurant on the bottom floor, and then you're allowed to go all the way up, and there are people who like give tours. Anyways, so highly recommended. And then we drove back to Simone's place, and Soed Idee, the Atelier Soed Idee, is actually like on her property. So her house is there. I didn't take any photos or video of the outside just because that felt a little weird because she lives there. But I did take a little bit of video of like down the street, there was this, I don't know if it was a pony or a donkey, but when we passed by the first time, he was on his back and he was just like writhing around. I guess he had an itchy back. And then when we left, my mom was like, you should take some photos of the donkey. And of course he wasn't doing that anymore, but I did get a little bit of footage of just the scenery. Our trip to Soed Idee, and something that I want to mention right off the bat for anybody who wants to visit one day, and I highly recommend it, by the way, you have to make an appointment. It's by appointment only. It's not really the kind of shop that you can just like pop into. She doesn't have opening hours per se, but she does have like slots on her website where you can book an appointment with her. So that's what I did. Actually, I didn't know you were supposed to do this, but when I had reached out to her a few weeks earlier, she had sent me the link to that page, which I will also include in the description here. And it made for a really like personalized shopping experience. It was really nice, actually. It was great. And Simona was very welcoming, and there was another woman who was working there also who was super sweet. So just to give you a little bit of context of what this space is like, it's a little building that's next to her house. It's definitely not like a shed. It's much more than a shed, but it's like a medium-sized space, and it's just like packed with all sorts of things. So when I talked to Simona, she told me that she sees herself mainly as like a shop owner, more so than as a designer, which is funny because in my mind she's definitely a designer. But yeah, she has a shop. That's how she started her cross-stitching business. And as it expanded, she told me she quite literally grew out of the space that she was in. And I don't know if they lived in that house at the time. I think they might have moved. And so now she has like this big workshop area that is not only where all of her stock is, and she carries all sorts of patterns from other designers, as well as like tons of linen and floss. She had a whole wall of Auvara soie, which was just like eye candy drool. But she also had like a workspace on the side where she had, you know, some antiques. She had a ton of antiques there. I don't even think I saw the half of them. But some of the really notable ones were the patterns that I already own. So I saw the antique of Elisabet P Doornbos, which is a Groningen sampler that I really, really love. And if you've seen my other videos, you might know that I actually started this sampler at one point and then realized that my piece of linen wasn't big enough. So never ended up completing it, but it's definitely high on my queue. And I love black samplers, especially Groningen samplers. And she had the antique there. And my mom got a couple of pictures of her showing it to me. And she also showed us the back of it, and it was like solid wood. Like she had been holding it up to me to show it to me, and then eventually she was like, can I put it down now? Because it was, I guess, really heavy. But the back of it was also really interesting because you could see that there were little bits of old newspaper that had at one point been pasted to the back of it. And, you know, there was only little fragments of it left. So I could see a couple of Dutch words there, but like not enough to really know what that article would have been about. But I think that's so cool that there's like, even on the back of the piece, which includes the frame, there's a little bit of history there. So that was super cool to see. One of my favorites that I've been quasi obsessed with for the last year or so in real life, and that it was just like hanging out in her workshop, like no big deal. Another one that I saw that wasn't even framed, it was just like pinned up on the wall. And this is one of my, like maybe one of my top 5 favorite samplers of all time, is the GH 1857. So I saw this in real life. I couldn't believe it. It was just out there. Like I could have touched it if I wanted to. I didn't. you shouldn't touch the antiques because, you know, they're fragile. But I could have. The point is, it was just there to be looked at and admired. And there are a couple of things that I wanted to mention about this sampler. First of all, there is a stitch along that is going to be starting on the 1st of June. And I think I'm going to participate in it. I have had this kitted up for months and months. It was something that I was thinking of starting on January 1st. I ended up going with something else, but I really love this pattern. I went through a whole ordeal trying to find the perfect linen for it. Ended up going with a fox and rabbit. The Duxbury, I think was the one, or maybe it was Mayflower. I think it was Duxbury. Anyways, and I was right. I wasn't sure if this was a picture of the antique on the cover here, and it is. There's another picture that I can show you here where you can see it a little bit better. And I've talked about this book before, but it's a beautifully made book. It even has like a little floss card that comes with it. And there are all these smalls there, and I saw them all. She had them all on a shelf. Took a picture of that, so I'll have that on screen. And I had asked her, I don't know if this was like a weird thing to ask her to do, but I asked if she could sign my copy, so I'll just cover it up. But yeah, I mention it because this thing is packed floor to ceiling with charts and information and beautiful photographs. So when I asked her to sign it, it took us a second to like find a blank space where there was enough room. In the end, she ended up signing on the, you know, on the very back cover. I'm covering, there's some charts here, so I'm covering that up. But there's a picture of her with the, I don't know if that's the reproduction or the antique, but yeah, with the sampler. And there's a chart with like alphabets here, but there happened to be a little bit of extra space on the bottom. So that is really the only blank space in this book. There's like nowhere else. Yeah, there's really nowhere else in this book where she could have signed it. But yeah, she wrote, "Dear Carmen, thank you for visiting us in Wassen. Enjoy your stitching. Hugs, Simone." So thank you for signing my book, and I hope I wasn't too much of a nerd while I was there. I was pretty excited about it. Oh, and the last thing I want to mention about this, in her, not conversion, but in the called for flosses, she has one DMC, a bunch of, I believe it's Weeks Dye Works, and then one Auvert à Soie silk. And I had read this in here, but the very light blue that you see, like in this motif, for example, that light blue in the center of that flower, in the book, she says that it kind of shines a little bit more than the other flosses around it, and it was really cool to see the antique. And I did manage to get a close-up picture of one of those motifs that I thought captured it, but it is quite stark how almost metallic that particular color looks. It's quite something. So she said that, you know, that's a silk floss. As for the other flosses, maybe they aren't, maybe they are as well, and they're just not as shiny. But anyways, definitely something that is very, very noticeable is that almost metallic baby blue color. So I did get the Auvert à Soie silk when I had kitted it up. So hopefully I'll be able to emulate that shininess when I eventually get to stitching this on hopefully June 1st. Another thing that I wanted to talk about, Soed Idee and Simone as a designer, are her Randjes. I think I'm saying that correctly. Anyways, it basically means borders, and I was kind of aware of this. I follow her on social media, so I'd seen her share some things related to it, and I'd seen her like other books that I hadn't bought yet, and so I was vaguely aware of it, but it was good to have her explain it to me. So basically, since I believe 2014, she's been collecting borders from all sorts of different samplers. And I believe she said that she has a friend, or maybe it's a colleague, who has a pretty extensive sampler collection, and that her with this friend, they collected and charted all of these borders from all of these different samplers. And over the years, she's done stitch-alongs with these borders. And also over the years, she's ended up publishing books, and they ran out, of borders in 2021. So you can now buy the Alle Randjes, I forget what it's called, but my mom bought that book, so I'll talk about that a little bit more in a second. But yeah, you can now buy them, all of them, and she had all of these band samplers, just like long pieces of linen with so much stitching going down them of all of these different borders. And it started with, you know, the very basic, just a straight line, and then, you know, little zigzag, and then it gets to these really complicated floral things. There were elephants, and there were also little guys on bicycles. I think those were like the funniest ones to me. And she said that she'd had a few people remark that, like, does that really count as a border? And it's like, well, if it runs along in a line and it's on the border of a piece, then yeah, it's a border. I guess anything can be a border if you just repeat it a bunch of times. Anyway, so what an incredible body of work to have that, and also what a great resource for a stitcher to have if you really like to customize your pieces, or if you're thinking of designing your own stuff. I think it's a great resource to have. And also just what a huge accomplishment to have built that collection over all of those years. And I bet you there are people out there who have followed all of the stitch alongs and also have that entire collection and these giant rolls of linen that have like a million different borders on there. I wonder what the grand total number is. I'm sure she knows. There's also a project that she's doing right now called Tona's Randjes, and she showed me the antiques. I did take a picture, but she asked me not to share it because they haven't all been published yet or shared online yet. But basically it was 3 big band samplers, and 2 of the 3 had a year on it, and the 3rd one doesn't, but she suspects that the 3rd one was the last one that was made because it has the most complicated and involved borders on it. So I believe the first 2 have already been completely shared, but the 3rd one, there are still some that have not been shared. And I believe she will be publishing all of Tona's Randjes in a book, I believe. Not totally sure. She seems to have a lot of projects going. I think yesterday I saw that she's making a book of red samplers. So, you know, definitely a designer in my mind. I almost forgot to mention that another one of the antiques that I saw there was this one, Godefroid. I already owned this book. This is a book, it fits in the same format as the GH book. It also has all sorts of smalls in there, which she also had in the shop, as well as the, you know, the mothership, as well as the main sampler. So this is also a great resource, and it also has, you know, the floss card and all sorts of information. It's also all in Dutch and in English with all of these beautiful, beautiful pictures. I really like the amount of work, it must be to put all of this together. I really appreciate all of that effort. Like, it makes a really nice and complete book. So I'm excited to see what other ones end up coming out in the future. So now I'm gonna go into the things that I bought. And then I'm gonna talk about the things that my mom bought, because for some reason I kept checking what she had and I didn't want to get the same things as her, even though, like, why not? Anyways. So the first thing that I will show, and actually 2 of the things that I got because I saw not just the models, but the antiques. So the first one is, I got it somewhat kitted up. So this was a sal that she had going I guess in the summer, I don't know what year, but in a summer month or summer year. And I saw it was like really simple. I got a picture of it as well as of the antique that I'll put on screen. And I don't know, it was, you know, not a huge, super involved sampler, but I really liked it. Just had a few colors. I asked her if she had the pattern, and she did, but it came as a kit with some flosses. It just has 5 colors. I've just got them here. They're all wrapped up, and I'd never used this floss before, but this is, hold on, yeah, Aurifil thread. I believe she told me that it is generally used for quilting, and that the weight of the thread is similar to a strand of DMC. So I'm quite curious to try this out. And then there's just one hand-dyed floss. So this is a classic Colorworks. So I have it, I mean, mostly kitted up. I'll just have to get a piece of linen for it, but I'm sure I have something in my stash that I can use for this. And I feel like this would stitch up pretty quickly. So yeah, definitely something I'm looking forward to working on, and something I didn't know she had. She has a lot of different things that she has charted over the years. Quite a large body of work. It's pretty impressive. And it was also just super cool to like be in the room with all of the antiques. I don't know if all of the antiques were in there, but a lot of them were. And there was also another sampler that I saw that really spoke to me, especially for the colors. It had a really interesting color palette, and I asked her about it, and she said that actually she had published it within one of the Randjes books from 2019. So I guess she had also added a couple of other projects to this book of borders. So I may have taken a picture of it, which I'll put on screen, but just in case I didn't, I'll just cover up the page that has the chart. But this is a picture of that sampler. You don't see the entire thing in this picture, but gives you an idea of the colors. They're very soft, kind of pastel-y colors. And again, kind of a simple pattern. Nothing too crazy going on. It's mostly just alphabets, and then there's some motifs on the bottom. But really it was the colors, like those purples. I don't know, I haven't really had a lot of purples in my stitching so far. I'm trying to think of a single project I've worked on that has had any purple in it. I mean, I'm sure I've worked with some purple, but anyways, it's definitely not a color that I have stitched with a whole lot. But it's really nice. It's very like springtimey. So I ended up getting the book, and there's all sorts of other projects in here too. So here, I'll just show you the cover of it so you can see some of the other things that are in there, as well as, of course, many borders, all of the borders from 2019. So that's a cool one. Oh man, these borders. I wish I could show you, but it's the actual chart, so I can't. But they're very cool. They use a maximum of 2 colors, I believe. And a lot of them just have the one color. This is a picture of her band sampler from 2019. Gives you an idea. So she had a whole bunch of these hanging off of like a little rack next to the door from all of those years. So that was cool to see. And the last thing that I bought there is a book by Yvette Stanton that has come out, I think, quite recently, Hardanger Filling Stitches. And Yvette Stanton has a whole bunch of books on different kinds of whitework, and I believe she even has an older book on Hardanger that she has put out. But I've been really curious about Yvette Stanton, especially for her Frisian whitework book, which I didn't get, and I'll tell you why in just a second. But this book, the amount of work that must have gone into putting this together is quite something. It's basically like a dictionary of all sorts of different Hardanger patterns that you can do. So it doesn't give you a pattern to like a big project. It's more of a how-to on all of these different motifs. And again, I kind of can't really show it to you because it would give away like patterns, but you'll just have to believe me. Oh, here's a page that I was looking at that I found quite interesting. It gives you examples of when your tension is right, or if it's too loose or uneven or whatever, but it gives you an idea of some of the, the ones, these are the good ones. But yeah, it gives you an idea of some of the designs that are in here. Anyways, the reason why I'm quite interested in whitework is because I have this idea of, like, if you have a sampler that's kind of simple or doesn't have a lot of colors, or maybe it's not that big, to do a border of Hardanger or of Frisian whitework or something like that. If you've been following me, you know that I've been having lots of fun with hem stitches over the last few months, and I feel like Hardanger or Frisian whitework or some other kind of pulled thread work would kind of just be like the next step. And it's something I'm just really interested in, and it is a really beautiful resource, a really nice book to look at. And so yeah, that is all of the stuff that I bought. Now I'm gonna get into the stuff that my mom bought. So first of all, there was a project that my mom was just like totally smitten by. It was a Plum Street piece called Judge Not, and it has all these sheep on it. And I might have taken a picture, or maybe I can grab a screen grab from when I walked around the shop. But Simone had adapted it quite a bit, and she put the lyrics of, I believe it's a Dutch lullaby on it, and I think she also like redesigned a couple of the sheep. Anyways, my mom was totally smitten by this piece and wanted to stitch it as well, which is like, and if you don't know, my mom's not a cross stitcher. I taught her the very basics of cross stitching a couple months ago, and I've also talked about cross stitch a lot to her, so I think I've kind of like infected her with cross stitch mania, which is fantastic. Anyways, so my mom did end up getting quite a lot of cross stitch stuff from both of these places, and she was really excited about that sheep one. And actually my mom has like a little collection of little wool sheep that she's gotten over the years. I think my mom really likes sheep. So she got that, and then she got Randje per Week 2016. I'm not sure exactly why she took that particular volume. There must have been something in there that she liked. But yeah, she got that one. But then she also got the Alle Randjes for, wait, what's it called? Verzameld? I might be pronouncing that. Anyways, I think it means all of the borders collected. And these are all of the borders from 2014 to 2021. And I don't understand why I didn't also buy that. So there's another thing she bought that I was going to buy. Actually, I'll just tell you now. It's the Frisian whitework version of this book by Yvette Stanton. So she pulled it off the shelf and I was like, oh, I've been looking for that, because I have been looking for it, and it's either sold out in the places near me or I can order it online, but then it's like $25 shipping. So I had resisted buying it for quite some time. And then we saw it there and I was like, oh great, I can finally buy it and not have to pay like an arm and a leg for shipping. And so I was gonna get one as well. And then my mom was like, no, don't get it, because this is your Christmas present. So I, in theory, will have the Frisian whitework version in a few months. I want it now though. Ooh, anyways, I'm being spoiled. But yeah, so my mom ended up buying that and I didn't, but I want to look at it. I want to leaf through it. I want to try some of the things, but I'll have to be patient. Anyways, once again, thanks Mom for buying that for me. Anyways, I didn't get the Alle Randjes book, but I think I'm going to have to call my mom and just like very honestly ask her if she was also intending on giving that to me. I don't want to like pressure her into giving it to me, but if she is keeping it for herself, which she absolutely should, I will be buying that. And I don't know why I didn't get it while it was there. I guess I just like saw it on her pile and I was like, all distracted and asking Simone 10,000 questions. Anyways, so that's all the stuff my mom bought and all the stuff that I bought. And now I am going to show all of the clips of me walking around the inside of that shop, and maybe a couple more from the animals outside. So on that night, we kept driving. We went to Apeldoorn. We stayed in a hotel there for one night. And then the next morning, we headed a little bit more north up to Drenthe. And before we went to the Handwerkboetiek, we stopped by a couple of little cafes and stores and little towns and passed through the towns where my grandparents are from. We ended up visiting the cemetery, which maybe sounds really weird to mention in a Flosstube, but whatever, I'm just retelling the story of that day. Yeah, that cemetery, we have a bunch of relatives in there, and it's like the most beautiful cemetery that I've ever been to. I had been there before. Anyways, we visited some of our relatives in the cemetery, and then we kept going to the Handwerkboetiek. So now on to that LNS. So I really, really wanted to visit this place for a couple of reasons. There's one sampler in particular that they only sell, or that only they sell, that I wanted to get, but also it's an LNS in my home province, which is where the tradition of cross-stitching kind of was passed down to me through that. So through my family anyways, if that makes sense. So I don't know, it was something very special about being able to go to a needlework store somewhat in the region of where my family is from. Felt very, very personal. So the Handwerkboetiek is in Rouden, which is in the north of Drenthe. It's actually almost in Groningen. And the owner, her name is Annemiek. I had communicated with her in the weeks preceding as well, so just planning out the trip. You don't need to make an appointment for the Handwerkboetiek. They're just a shop that has regular opening hours, and I'll share their website in the description of this video as well. Annemiek has a Flosstube. Her Flosstube is sometimes in English, but I think most of the time is in Dutch. So, but anyways, if you're Dutch, especially if you're Dutch, but even if you're Anglophone, you can check that out. I will also link that. And unfortunately, on the day that worked out in me and my mom's schedules, was like the one day that Annemiek couldn't be there, so I didn't get to meet her, which is super sad, but I guess it just means that I'm gonna have to come back, which I'd love to do. But her mom was there. Her mom was like the sweetest lady ever. She didn't speak too much English, but my mom speaks Dutch, and they were talking, and oh, the love of needlework in that place was just palpable. It was such a nice ambiance in a little town. This one I did take a little bit of footage outside just to give you a bit of an idea. I saw recently that they had put some flowers outside because, you know, it's springtime now. Anyways, just a really lovely, lovely place. We also chatted with them. My mom did most of the chatting that time, and I just like stared at the walls. I got to see so many different models. I hadn't really seen a whole ton of different models before. Like, well, it's the same thing at Soed Idee. Like, I hadn't seen a lot of stitched models, and I get it that the models sell patterns, and that's definitely what I experienced. Actually, I'm gonna share a screen grab of a piece that I saw while I was there that I wanted to buy, but they didn't have it in stock. But I didn't catch the name of what it was called. I know it was Plum Street, but I don't know what it's called. So if anyone happens to know what this is, even though this is probably not a great photo, but if you see it and you recognize it, apparently it's Plum Street. I'd really like to stitch this. It was so beautiful. But anyways, I did get some other things. Something I do need to mention right away for anybody who wants to visit the Handwerkboetiek. And actually this is something that we noticed when we were in the Netherlands in general, is that a lot of places don't accept Visa card. I was not anticipating that at all. And actually I realized later that like every other time that I had visited the Netherlands after having lived there, I always just used my Dutch bank account card, like my PIN card, my debit card from the Netherlands. And I didn't this time, I just used my Visa card. But yeah, Visa is, I guess, not as widespread there as it is here. So there were a few times throughout my trip where I wanted to get something and I couldn't. And unfortunately, me and my mom learned when we got there that their machine didn't accept Visa card. I don't know if that applies also for ordering things off of their website. I'm not totally sure about that. But yeah, unfortunately, me and my mom kind of had to like scramble, and my mom luckily had some euros, like actual paper money, and we ended up having to like count our pennies and see how much we could actually get while we were there. So there's definitely a lot more things that I would have gotten, but anyways, in the future, I'm gonna actually bring some actual money, or maybe just load a bit more money on my Dutch bank account card. Anyways, it's mostly my fault, but something that I just wasn't aware of and that I would like to transmit to you also. If you go to the Handwerk Boetiek or anywhere in the Netherlands, maybe just have some euros with you if you're not sure. Okay, so I'm editing the video and there's a couple of things about the Handwerk Boetiek that I forgot to mention. So I'm gonna insert this into the video. First of all, I just wanted to mention that the women who were working there were so hospitable and nice. There was Annemiek's mother who was there, but there was also another woman called Joan, and they made us tea. It was just so lovely. We were well taken care of, me and my mom. Oh, and the other thing that I briefly wanted to mention is that I took a very gorgeous picture of a wall of floss of Soed Idee over floss. Actually, there was a similar wall at Soed Idee, but when I was at the Handwerk Boetiek, I took a picture of it, and it is the most glorious photo that I've ever taken. I'll have it on screen, and it is now the wallpaper on my cell phone. So if anybody else wants it as the wallpaper on your cell phone because it is just pure eye candy, let me know and I'll send it to you. Anyways, so I will start with the things that my mom got this time. So what I've learned about my mom is that she really likes, or I think she figured this out for herself, because there were so many Hello by Liz Matthews patterns that my mom picked up without even realizing that they were all from the same designer, and she really liked them. So clearly my mom and Liz Matthews are, you know, compatible. That sounded weird. She likes Hello from Liz Matthews patterns, and you know, we did have to slim down the things that we were gonna buy, but one of the things that did make the cut were the poppies by Hello from Liz Matthews, and I believe she gives you a couple of different color options for them, so that'll be, I guess, fun for my mom to decide which color of poppies she wants to end up having. And the other thing that my mom got, and my mom was totally smitten by this pattern. I would not have guessed this for my mom, but she picked up Tudor Goat by the Blue Flower, and she just loved it. She loved the colors, she loved the goat, she loved the finishing. She was really into the finishing on that one. She wanted to figure out how to do that, which I don't know how to do, so I'm not necessarily going to be the one who's able to help her. But when she had actually gotten it kitted up, and then we had to like put some things back because we didn't have enough euros. But I told her that probably of all of the things in the kit that would be easiest to get here in Canada would be the floss. So she put the DMC back, but I encouraged her to get the chenille, which is from Lady Dot Creates, because I feel like that kind of thing is a little bit harder to find. And it was the right color for that piece. And she ended up getting the linen for it as well. She got some 32 count, just like gray Zweigart linen. I don't know what the exact color is called, but it's a Zweigart linen. And she wanted to, she didn't know which count to get. And my mom has never stitched on linen before, or Ada actually. She's only stitched one time and it was on perforated paper. So I think next time I'm home, I'm gonna have to like sit down with my mom and like figure out what, you know, if she wants to stitch in hand or if she wants to use a hoop or something. We'll have to figure it out because there's a little bit of a learning curve, I guess. But my mom was really quick at picking up the perforated paper, so I think she's gonna be just fine. So yeah, she got the chenille, she got the pattern, and she got the linen for that. And then what I got there, I ended up just getting two things. One was this Blackbird Designs pattern that I had never heard of before. I didn't recognize this at all. Lydia R. Cohagen. And this I have stitched before, my dear hearts, and I don't know, it kind of reminded me of it in a way. And then it turns out that it's kind of the same idea where, and Blackbird does this quite a bit, where they have an antique and they don't necessarily make like a true reproduction of it, but they adapt it. So this is the actual antique that it's based off of, and then this is the pattern that you end up with. So very, very similar. And that's the original, it's the antique. So I love that Blackbird does this, because they really kind of, in a way, encourage you to personalize it a little bit. So Lydia R. Cohagen, I don't know if I'm saying that right, but I believe it's, okay, so Lydia is Alma's great-grandmother's name. And she used the date that she married her great-grandfather. Okay, so I don't know if I'm gonna put Lydia's name on my version of this when I eventually get to it. Or maybe what I can do is even try to make it a little bit more reminiscent of the original. I don't know, I'll have to decide, but I was quite taken with this, and so I ended up getting it. But the real reason that I was just dying to go to the Handwerkboetiek is for this very, very special sampler that I had heard about for the first time when I went to the Jacob Palooza retreat in London, Ontario last October. Evertote put that on, and actually I'm gonna take this out of its little folder here, one second. So if you like this sampler, you can only get it at the Handwerkboetiek right now. So I'll also link that in my description, the page for this sampler. Okay, how do I get this straight? And so when I went to, if you watched my first Flosstube, I talked about this for a while, but it was a while ago and maybe you didn't watch that video. So for the new people, basically Jacob de Graaf, who's the designer behind Modern Folk Embroidery, he was the featured designer at this retreat that I went to. I'm a huge fan of his work. He's also a Dutch designer. And he showed in one of his presentations a picture of a sampler from Drenthe. Drenthe being the province that my family's from. And I had tried to find samplers from Drenthe before, and I just couldn't. There was tons from Friesland and Groningen, which are neighboring provinces, but none from Drenthe, and I just thought that was kind of strange. And so when he showed it, I was like, oh my goodness, these are my people. And I had asked him, why are there no samplers from Drenthe? And he explained to me that, it was back in the day, it was not a very well-off province, and so, a lot of the samplers that may have been made maybe didn't survive because they were made out of not as good materials, or they needed to use that material for something because they didn't have an abundance of fabric lying around or thread, or maybe the girls didn't really have time to make a sort of non-essential item like this because they had to work in the farms. And then he also said that there are probably some Groningen samplers that were actually stitched in Drenthe but have been attributed to families from Groningen because they're in that style, because apparently some of the richer farming families from Groningen also did farming in Drenthe. Anyways, so that's a little bit the reason why there aren't that many Drenthe samplers. However, he told me that there was a museum in Drenthe that has 4 or 5 of them. So maybe next time I visit, I will meet Annemiek and I will go to that museum. That's my goal. The thing is, I can't drive, and these towns don't necessarily have train stations in them, so I would have to figure out how to get to these places. Anyways, my mom was the chauffeur, and that's kind of part of the reason why I was able to go to these LNSs. But yeah, so this is a sampler that I could have ordered it online back when I first heard about it in October, but I knew I was going to the Netherlands, and I just thought it would be really special to be able to actually go to the shop and get it there. So I'm really grateful that I was able to do that. I feel very lucky that this exists and that it's been reproduced. And something I didn't even really notice is that there's these big butterflies, or maybe they're moths on the top. And the way that they had it, because when I walked into the shop, the first thing I saw was the model for this. It was right on the wall, and they had a Hello by Liz Matthews piece where it's like a cloche with a little greenhouse botanical thing. Maybe I can try to find I've seen it before, but yeah, I'll try to get that on screen. And there's butterflies in it, and then underneath it they had another butterfly piece. It was just a butterfly, and then underneath that they had this. So there was clearly like a little butterfly theme going on the wall there. I really liked that. And silly me, I didn't actually take a picture of their model. I do have a screen grab because I walked around and filmed a little bit, but anyways, I guess I'm just gonna have to stitch it and then I'll have my own model to look at. Anyways, it was also a lot bigger than I thought it was going to be. For some reason in my mind, it was a teeny tiny little sampler. The dimensions are 193 by 137 crosses. So it's definitely like a medium-sized piece. It's not a teeny tiny one. And lots of very muted colors. I was gonna get it kitted up, but again, we had limited euros with us. So the one thing I definitely knew that I needed to come home with though was this. So, Lammegien Pot from Drenthe. And there's some information about her here. So this is a special one. I almost want to stitch this for myself and then stitch this again for like all of the women in my family. I think we all need to get one. So that's pretty special. I've had some time to like process it, but like it really, really means a lot to me that I am able to have this. And I'm looking forward to making it. So I think that's pretty much everything that I got there. So now I'm going to show you all the footage that I took at the Handwerk Boetiek in Roden in Drenthe. Yeah, right here.
been a couple days, and as before, my mom is upstairs sleeping and she's actually sick. So I'm trying to be pretty quiet so she can sleep well. But I still wanted to give a little bit of an update on my sock. But before I do that, I actually want to show my mom's sock. So when my mom knew that I would be knitting on this trip, she decided she also wanted to knit socks so she wouldn't feel left out, which is very cute. And I had recommended to her a pattern by Summer Lee called the Hibernal sock. And today she finished her first sock. And if I'm being honest, I actually finished it for her. There were only 3 rows left at the toe, but she was like off by 1 stitch, and I think she was getting frustrated, and I was getting frustrated with her not just finishing it, so I offered to finish it, and she said that she'd be happy to let me do that. So I did the last 3 rows, but she did everything else. And this was her first cuff down sock, which is nuts to me. And I believe it was her first fancy sock too, and it looks super good on. And I also offered to cast on the second sock, so I just did that too. And from this point on, this is her project. I'm not going to touch it anymore. But now on to my project. I got some good progress on my, what's this called? The basket weaver sock. Check that out. That is such a cool knit pattern. It really looks like it's woven together. And it was a little bit confusing because the beginning of round changes like every 4 rows. And also the end of a needle on magic loop sometimes ends up being a yarn over, which I haven't been able to figure out. So I'm like, I kind of fiddled it around so that the beginning of round started here. And I did use a stitch marker, even though I hate using stitch markers. But I'm just leaving it in there as a point of reference, and I'm not like slipping it on the needle because I always drop stitches when I do that. But I think I've figured it out and I really like it, and I've done 3.5 pattern repeats, and I think I'm supposed to do 6 in total, so I'm a little bit past the halfway point on the leg. The cuff is way longer than anything I've ever done before, so it's gonna be, I think, a little bit of a longer sock than what I'm used to making. But anyways, I'm loving knitting on this, and I love this yarn so much. It's so fun to watch my stitches change colors every once in a while. For some reason I get really excited when I get to do the dark brown ones. I think it's just because they're the most different. But yeah, this definitely makes me realize that I need to use more fun, funky yarns, because this is so fun. Anyways, I'm going back into Amsterdam for one last time tomorrow, and I hope to get a couple of rows in on this while I'm there so I can say that it is truly and well my Amsterdam socks. And with that, I'm gonna go to sleep because tomorrow is my last day here, which is sad, but I'm also excited to sleep in my own bed in a couple of nights because sleeping has not been great this week, I'm not gonna lie. Anyways, that's all. I just finished the leg. I'm in Amsterdam. This is my last day here. And so yes, I have managed to put in some knitting in Amsterdam. So I'm gonna do the heel now. It's just garter stitch. We'll see how that goes, but it seems like it'll be really easy. And yeah, there she is, an entire leg done. Yeah, so I'm at the airport now. We're leaving. We've checked in. We've gone through security.
great news. Once again, my needles made it through, no problem at all. And you know, I'm gonna just knit on my sock until it's time to board our flight. And I am nearing the end of my gusset decreases, and then it's gonna be easy knitting on the flight back. So I'm really looking forward to that. And overall, I had a great trip. I can't wait to make my next Flosstube because I think it's gonna be a really fun one for me to put together. Also kind of quasi-vlog style because of all my sock knitting updates. But anyways, I gotta come back soon. This trip was way too short. Anyways, I'm gonna get to work on this sock again, and I'll see you in Canada. Okay, so I've been home for one day. I got back last night, and I thought I'd give one final sock update and also wrap up this video at the same time. So yesterday on my first flight, I knit for pretty much 7 hours straight. I did take a couple of breaks, but yes, I did end up eventually finishing this sock. I got pretty much to the end of the end of the foot on that flight, and then I wanted to try the sock on, but I didn't really want to do that on the plane with people around because they'd probably think I was a weirdo. And, you know, my feet probably didn't smell great anymore at that point. So I decided to wait until I was in the next airport because I knew I had like a 3.5 hour layover, and it turns out that I needed to do just a little bit more on the leg. And then I did the toe also, and I managed to do the entire toe except for the Kitchener stitch. I really needed to board my flight. I couldn't put it off any longer, and I ended up fully finishing this sock. Well, fully finished would be blocked and woven in, but anyways, finishing the knitting on this sock as the plane was boarding, and I then spent that second flight casting on and putting in the first couple of rows in this sock. I didn't do all of this on that second flight. I also knit on it today. But anyways, something I'm noticing about knitting this second sock is that I'm not bored at all. I often am kind of eager to finish that second sock because I want to get to the next pair. But I think I'm just having so much fun with this yarn, and the pattern is just challenging enough. By the way, I have figured out how to both start and end a needle with a yarn over. I just had to like think about it and try some things out, but I did figure that out, so I didn't have to, you know, move the stitches around on the needles like I did the first time. Actually, I don't even really know how that was supposed to have helped me. Anyways, whatever. I am working on the sock and it's much easier this time. Not that it was particularly hard the second time. And I will be putting that away now because now that I'm home, I'm going to be focusing more on my cross stitching. But before showing you this little bit of stitching that I've done since I've been home, I just want to show you the other pair of socks, the Unity socks. So this morning, first thing I did is that I washed these socks and I put them on the blocker. They're almost dry, but they already look so much better with all of that cabling visible, and I feel like everything has just kind of opened up and relaxed. So I'm really excited to see how these fit now that they've been blocked, and then I can finally, you know, weave in all of these ends because they're bugging me. Anyways, these are beautiful socks, and I pretty much knit the entire pair while in the Netherlands. I just did one leg of one of the socks here, and you know, these were definitely my travel socks. I guess these are also my travel socks. Anyways, so I got back and I finally was reunited with Charlotte Ramsay by Modern Folk Embroidery. This is the Sal that I've been hosting, the Jacob Sleeper Sal. And if you'll remember, I had that little update at the beginning of the video, but I just need to do some back stitching on this H as well as this row down here. And that's all I've done so far today. I have a lot of work to catch up on. I go back to work tomorrow and I have like 2 hours of music to learn. So I don't have the luxury of just being able to stitch all day. But I realized during my trip that during my last trip, I started Charlotte Ramsay the day after I got back, and I feel like that was my reward after that trip. And then I went on another trip, and my reward is coming back to Charlotte Ramsay and finally getting to get to all of the motifs, because I was on Alphabet Island for quite a while there, and it's finally done, and I get to go and do all the fun stuff. So I'm super excited to be able to spend some quality time with Charlotte Ramsay. And after that, I'm probably going to be stitching something that I picked up on my trip this past week. So I haven't quite decided what's next in the queue, but I'm pretty sure it'll be something from one of my 2 LNS visits. But for now, it's Charlotte Ramsay time, and I'm really glad to be reunited with her. So with that, I'm gonna wrap it up. I just wanted to briefly mention that while I was in the Netherlands, I had quite a few people from the Netherlands message me on Instagram. I was posting quite a bit of updates there, and it was just really fun to connect to people from the Netherlands. A lot of them were telling me, oh, you should go to Soed Idee or the Handwerk Boetiek, and I was like, I actually am going to these places. And if you're in the Netherlands or if you're visiting the Netherlands, I would highly, highly recommend visiting those places, as well as Stephen and Penelope if you're a knitter and you're in Amsterdam. But yeah, for the stitchers out there, these places were definitely worth the trip. Really special people running the shops. I had an amazing experience. I feel super, super lucky that I was able to visit both of them. I mean, just one of them would have already been amazing, but I got to visit both of them, and it was such an enriching experience, and I have all sorts of fun stuff to keep me busy for months and months and months now. Not that I didn't have anything fun to keep me busy with before that, but now I have even more. So anyways, I just wanted to, thank Simone and Annemiek and everybody that I interacted with on Instagram who is from the Netherlands. I hope to be back soon. It was too short of a trip. It was a very busy and active trip. And next time I'm there, I hope I can actually spend a bit more time and maybe travel to other parts of the country too. Maybe there are some other LNSs that I'm not aware of. Anyways, I'm gonna wrap it up here. I have no idea how editing this video is gonna be. I'm gonna have to cobble together a lot of clips, so we'll see how that works. Hopefully it all makes sense. But in any case, I hope you enjoyed this video, and I will be seeing you in my next Flosstube, hopefully very soon. And yeah, bye!